And welcome to episode number 22 of the Between Two Brands podcast. I am Bill Petrie and I am your host. It's always fun to do this podcast. I am enjoying it more and more as I'm finding my rhythm, and I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. So before we get started, as I like to do, let's pay a bill or two, shall we? Hey, distributors, it's time to wake up. Your clients are no longer satisfied with you merely acting as a middleman, slapping their logo on generic, predictable, and frankly uninspiring products. What they're demanding is something more, merchandise that feels as if it was thoughtfully curated for just their unique brand. Stand out, your clients need something exceptional. Products that truly reflect their identity and set them apart from the crowd. Now, this is where our friend Russ Mogel and his team at Seven Sourcing come in with over 30 years of direct custom merchandise sourcing. They are the clear leaders in the space. Here's just a few reasons why you need to partner with Seven Sourcing on custom merch. One, establish relationships with vetted and trusted factories. Number two, they ensure all merchandise passes a rigorous quality control check by an accredited third-party partner. They comply with and frequently exceed industry standards on manufacturing requirements and product safety regulations. And they manage every part of logistics and communicate through every step of the process. In other words, with their expertise, they know how to deliver bespoke merchandise that will position you, the distributor, as the hero in the eyes of the client while steering clear of those common pitfalls that come with managing it on your own. Now, yeah, it takes a little bit more time, typically between 75 and 90 days to design, develop, and truly deliver unique and original merchandise. But isn't that extra planning worth it to craft exceptional products that foster lasting loyalty? I absolutely believe it. So when you're ready to elevate yourself from just another promotional products distributor to a true partner who delivers exactly what your clients crave, that unique custom branded merchandise that's designed specifically for them, reach out to Russ and his team at sales@sevensourcing.com. All right, I thought we'd do something. I don't know if it's a little different or not, but there's not a ton going on, big breaking news in the world of promotional products and marketing. So I thought we'd do some promotional products industry quick hits. We used to do this on the old Promo Upfront podcast, so we're going to do it here on the Between Two Brands podcast. First one is the rebranding of California Tattoos to Beyond Tattoos. I absolutely love this. I think if you listen to me on this podcast or other podcasts, you know I'm a huge fan of when when companies rebrand and they do so smartly and intentionally. This one feels really intentional. Not only is the fact that now Beyond Tattoos is based in Arizona, not California, it doesn't regionalize them as much as California does, which can be a give or take situation. So I love the fact. And, Jill Strinkorb, who's a VP of sales over there, and her team are really doing an amazing job. And so it's easy to point fingers and poke fun when people aren't doing a great job. So I thought it's a good time to point out when people are doing a great job. So love the fact that California Tattoos is now Beyond Tattoos. This came from ASI, our good friends over at ASI. At Buc-ee's, which if I'm from Texas, so I have a soft spot in my Billy heart and my branding heart for Buc-ee's. They have filed a slew of lawsuits over trademark infringement of their iconic Buc-ee the Beaver icon, if you're familiar with Buc-ee's at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with Buc-ee's, it's an open mouth, buck-toothed beaver that has come to really represent the Buc-ee's brand. I see these knockoffs all the time. And some are funny, not gonna lie. Some are absolutely funny, but they are copyright infringement, and people are profiting off of that likeness in that brand. So I absolutely applaud this. I'm sure in these lawsuits, the target companies will argue that, oh, this is just parody. It's not parody. There is a big difference when you're trying to profit off of it. One thing to do a parody, it's a whole nother thing to print merch that has a variation of that Bucky's logo on there. And I think we're going to start seeing a real movement toward people really protecting their brand, just as we've seen promotional products and branded merchandise really elevate over the last, I'd say, 5, 7 years to a truly thought out part of the marketing experience. I think you're going to see people protect their brands a heck of a lot more. So I absolutely applaud Bucky's here. I saw Brandito acquired Inkwell. Normally, I don't love covering acquisitions because they happen, it seems like every 16 minutes in our industry. This one caught my eye because I remember when Inkwell was a large distributor and it seemed like one of those powerhouse distributors. Maybe that's showing my age. Maybe it's just the way I think about things. But it just struck me as interesting because I still look at Brandito as this scrappy startup company, but then you read private equity funded. And so you realize where the money's coming from. And we talk about it often in our industry about how private equity is really making more and more of an impact every day. And when you see a company like Brandito, that is still in my mind, like I said, that scrappy startup, you see them acquiring a company like Inkwell. It just shows you how much private equity money has proliferated the industry at just about every level. And last, we talk about tariffs because it just seems like that's all that's going on right now, and it is a bumpy roller coaster. So doing a weekly podcast, it is so difficult to do any sort of tariff update that would give anybody any sort of value because things not only change week to week, but day to day, and sometimes, and I'm not kidding, and I think you all know this, hour to hour. So I'm just going to give a generic tariff update. So regardless of what's happening, I believe this is accurate. Hey, tariffs are on. Hey, tariffs are off. Hey, they're back on and more intense than ever. Hey, they're mostly off while we negotiate. Oh, they're back on, this time at 150% because insert whatever country here isn't playing nice. I don't like to get into politics here, but man, it seems like this administration is almost craving uncertainty and it is getting exhausting. I don't know what the appetite is for this roller coaster ride, but I got to tell you, I'm fairly full and I don't have one anymore. So I'm ready for some sort of certainty, whatever it is. Tell you what else I'm certain for. It's some certain time is to pay a quick bill before we get to our guest today. Hey, many people know how to build a business, but very few understand not only when it's time to sell that business, but the process involved to ensure that you find the right partner to maximize the return on your investment. Honestly, it's why you need an expert, especially one from the promotional products industry to help you, and that's where our good friends over at Certified Marketing Consultants come in. Jamie Watson and her team have decades of experience facilitating private company sales in the branded merchandise space. To help you evaluate if it's time to sell your business, reach out to Jamie and her team over at CMC at info@certifiedmarketing.com for a confidential discussion today. All right, why don't we go ahead and bring in our guest? Today's guest needs absolutely no introduction, but as I really like to do, I like to waste my guest's time, your time, and even my time by giving you an introduction anyway. Hey, he has been in the promotional merchandise industry for almost 40 years. And for those of you scoring at home, that's 4 decades. He has served in executive roles at suppliers, distributors, and for the last 25 years, he has been at HALO Branded Solutions. Now, at his current role at HALO, he's responsible for HALO's supply chain, sustainability, licensing, compliance, and inside sales. He lives in the bustling metropolis of Sterling, Illinois, with his wife of 31 years, Jill. He's been active in industry volunteerism, easy for me to say, as well as the local community, and spends his spare time biking, gardening, and generally spinning long and verbose stories to his 2 adult children, Rachel and Nick. Please join me in welcoming my good friend, the one and only Terry McGuire. Terry, I don't know what I have in your past that you're scared of me revealing that you would agree to do this podcast, but I'm glad I have something in my pocket.
The list is long and not distinguished, Bill. In
No,
terms of our
no.
in terms of our many years, I wouldn't say together, but as very good friends. Yes.
Yes, yes. So you know the format of the podcast. I think you have something you want to talk about with me, and then I've got five very
Sure.
easy questions to talk to you about. I want people to get to know you being the international
Mm.
man of mystery that you are.
It's good. I'm glad somebody does. There's one of you.
Yeah,
That's nice.
there is.
There's one of you.
Yeah,
That's nice.
there is. So,
So,
what do you want to talk about?
well, I think probably the most topical thing relevant to our industry right now is tariffs. And
Oh,
and yeah, I know I've heard
you
of them.
don't say.
Yeah, I've heard of them. And that's something we've been deeply involved with for the past 3 or 4 months, trying to navigate it both for our clients, our account executives, and then working with our suppliers to do that.
How are you like? Let me ask you this in all seriousness, an actual serious question before we get to the silliness of later. How are you helping your large distributor network manage their end user clients? Like, what coaching are you giving them? Because I
Yeah.
talked about it in the part of the podcast you weren't on, but I gave a tariff update, which was they're on again, they're off again, they're kind of on again while we negotiate, they're back off again. Now they're on double 150% because insert country here isn't playing nice, and that changes hour to hour. What coaching are you giving them?
Well, we've done a number of town halls, communications, training. The biggest thing is to try to alleviate the fear,
Yeah.
and the mystery, because it's a moving target. It's very volatile. The big thing for us has been to try to kind of give a roadmap for our account executives to present to their clients, to articulate the landscape, the nature of the situation, to their clients as well, so they kind of get it and understand it. They can make buying decisions based on information, and rather than buying decisions based on what they see on X or anywhere else.
Yeah, and it's hard to navigate because the suppliers don't know what to do. Nobody knows what to do because, I think we can all deal with certainty. Maybe it's 30% tariffs across the board. We could all deal with that, plan for that. We might hate it, but we could plan for that. But it is changing quite literally hour to hour sometimes. It's hard to
Right.
know what to tell people. I've been telling my distributor clients or people that come to me is I would just say we're watching the situation, understand that prices may fluctuate because anything beyond that, do you want to be, I'm not sure you want to be pinned down
Right.
to anything.
Right. You don't want to be pinned down. You want to be able to, transparency is key. You want to be able to tell your clients, here's the nature of the situation. It could change, positive or negative, probably negative, based on the volatility. One of the comments that you made is really telling. I've been having conversations with our top suppliers since February on this. And the thing that has amazed me in those conversations, and most of the supplier conversations are based on, how would Halo respond if we did this, or we're thinking about this, or more importantly, what are other people, specifically our competitors, doing? What are you hearing and seeing? I think the thing that surprised me the most, everyone knew after the election there was going to be some sort of a tariff increase, and no one knew that it would be this, chaotic. Um, and horribly administrated. But anyway, um, I've been surprised in the number of conversations with key suppliers where I said, well, what's your tariff strategy? Well, we really haven't, we're kind of scratching our head on that yet. I'm like, dude, it's April. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you should have penned something down on this, a little while ago.
Yeah.
And that's not disparaging them. I think a lot of
Oh,
this caught people off guard. Um, yeah.
I, I think by now, I mean, we're recording this. This is June. This is going to drop June 13th when this podcast drops. I think by now we thought, okay, the initial bleh of it all would have subsided into something a bit more predictable, a bit more palatable. And like you said, I think the word you used was perfect, chaotic. It does feel chaotic. I don't recall a feeling of this magnitude of uneasiness for such a
Yeah.
sustained period of time in my life, quite frankly. And so I understand some of the suppliers kind of, gosh, our plan is to ride out this first couple months until things settle, but now we're 6 months in and things have not settled.
Things are not settling. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, the boy, there are a lot of layers
Yeah, there are.
to a lot of layers to that commentary. Um, there's never been an administration. that has implemented tariffs in such a chaotic way. And the one thing that I've learned in almost 40 years in business is that all businesses, but especially US businesses, especially our clients, they thrive or they die on predictability or lack of predictability. And so there are really two components and a very good reason for people in the industry to be very, fearful. And two components to this. And one is how are you going to handle the price changes, the client conversations,
Right.
all that part of the chaos. But the bigger part of the chaos here is the demand side. And that's where
Mhm.
the concern is. I mean, we're fortunate
Yeah.
at Halo, second largest distributor in the industry. We have a lot of purchasing leverage. We have decades of relationships with our key suppliers, so we can work with them to try to mitigate or communicate and articulate as best we can to clients. But the bigger concern going forward is the demand side. How is this going to
Yeah.
impact? How is this level of chaos going to impact our buyers' appetite for using promotional products when there's this much volatility? When they're going to pay 30% more for the same product they ordered last year, are they going to reorder that product, or are they just going to say, maybe there's just another form of advertising? Maybe I can give gift cards to my
Yeah.
employees for appreciation gifts.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's where the longer term concern lies.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and whether, and there are some people we know who are pro tariff. There are some people we know are against
Yeah.
it. I'm against it personally, but regardless of where you fall, I think we can all agree on the stream of consciousness way in which this seems to have been implemented, a fly by the seat of your pants with very little foresight into what might actually happen
Mhm.
when they're implemented, is concerning on a major level. So before, let's wrap a bow on this.
Yeah.
What's the one piece of advice you would give to distributors right now that they should be telling their clients to, as they have events coming up and things like that? What is the one thing you would tell them? Because you're kind of like the tariff whisperer. I think that's what a couple people had mentioned you as.
I don't know if that's kind or it's not nothing I want as an epitaph, but um, before I answer that, the one thing in the trainings that we've done internally that I've really reinforced is that this is not a political issue for us.
No.
We're a business. We are not a pack. For us, this is we are trying to respond to the market conditions, and so that leads into the response to your question. The
Hmm.
number one thing is have the dialogue with your client, explain the landscape and the situation, give them options, and maybe they don't want a tariff sensitive product, or maybe it's not in their best interest, and tell them why, and tell them maybe it's time to shift to a different product or idea that's going to be less sensitive, because when you need this in 2 weeks or 2 months, the world could change and I'm going to have to change your pricing if the
Yeah.
world changes. So be transparent, be informative. You've done sales training for decades. And so the key to this is communication with your clients and being very real and very open about the nature of the landscape and how to navigate it.
I think that's
Be a
great advice. I
counselor.
think, yeah, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head, and the other thing I would just add to that, because I agree, it's all about transparency and just making sure you're communicating. But the only thing I would add to that is it's okay to say, I don't know. And because
Yeah.
I don't know, you don't know. And our supply chain doesn't know. Heck, I'm not sure the current administration knows. Nobody knows. It's okay to kind of cling on to that ignorance as, it's not a strategy, but this is where we're at. I don't know the
Yeah.
answers.
One thing that's been very clear, and we have communicated as often as we can, this is the situation today. And no one has a crystal ball. As you mentioned,
No.
the administration doesn't, the world doesn't,
No.
businesses don't. And so to try to project what you think pricing and supply chain will be 6 weeks from now is a fool's errand.
Agreed. I think the only people that have a crystal ball are probably sticks. Now, with that, why don't we go ahead and get into some questions for you? 'Cause I'd like to get to know you a little bit better, Terry, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. So, Terry, you're
Let
the
me take
senior
a
vice president.
let,
Oh,
let me take a
you
big
just,
gulp. Let me take a big gulp of a gin and tonic because I got a feeling this is going to be a tough one. Let's go.
no, not at all. No. So, Terry, you're the Senior Vice President of Supplier Relations and Sustainability Halo Branded Solutions, a very large, very well-respected distributor in the branded merchandise space. Could you expand on exactly what you do? I mean, besides just nodding at buzzwords like brand ecosystem and pipeline acceleration while secretly asking ChatGPT, how do I fake a Wi-Fi outage during a Teams call?
I've never used Chat GPT. For the record, I'm not an AI person. I don't believe in it and agree with it. I think it's a great tool for a lot of people, just not for me. But thank you for the note. What for the notice? What I do
Yeah.
on any given day, I I try to help fix things that are broken, whether they're broken big or broken small. At any distributor, that's what a lot of people do, and I'm not uncommon in that role. And I just try to move the ball forward in any way that I can, given the responsibilities I have.
It's a great answer. See,
Was that a
I
gray
know you.
enough answer?
That
Was
was
that nebulous enough?
that was bordering on milk toast. I loved that answer. Now, may I go to question number B?
Oh no. Yes, you can.
You and I worked together at Halo from 2000 to 2008. It was a very tumultuous time where we fought through the very public bankruptcy. So, two-part question for you. Number one, what's your fondest memory of us working together outside of writing the legendary preference letter and asking suppliers who paid money during the immediate 90 days before the bankruptcy filing to return those funds and hanging out in San Antonio with famous people named Bridget?
Bill, you're making me verklempt. Um,
I'm getting a case of the vapors.
I so there were several things that I loved about working with you. One, you probably are as close as anyone that I have ever worked with to me as being able to frame any sort of situation in a metaphor relating to a movie line, a movie scene, movie script. I think that's a lost art for the newer generation. Um, I don't think a meeting went by without at least one of us impersonating Yoda and giving some good Yoda wisdom, and that's a lost art. And I really hate to see that because now I try to do that in meetings, and the people kind of the under 40 age group, they just look at me with bizarre stares. And so then I try to do it in character, and they look at me with bizarre, they don't get it. They don't understand it. That's just not how they consume intelligence, I guess.
Yeah.
And you and I combined have a lot. But
Oh,
I loved that. I love the fact that you were probably the only person in this industry that is snarkier than me.
I
And
don't know about that.
let's turn the mirror on you. But anyway, um, and so the best thing about working with you is that amidst the chaos, and in 2001 and 2002, amidst the Halo bankruptcy, which was honestly the most difficult time of my career, even more difficult than COVID. Um, with all that duress, you and I were two of the people that were able to find levity
Yep.
and laugh at just the insanity of everything that was going on and just punch through it. And I think, a really good humor is a really good way to get through stressful situations, especially in that case where it was continued stress. It wasn't just an order that went bad and you got to deal with it. This was just every single day was tough, and we would find ways. The other thing that you are very noted for, by the way, because I've had several people tell me this, and we had a competition and you won. Who could impersonate the other better? And
That is
you
correct.
do. I've had people tell me that Bill Petrie does a better Terry McGuire impersonation than Terry McGuire can do. So you've inflated my whole persona with your impersonation of me, and people seem to respond better to that than to me.
Well, here's the thing, Terry. You know, when you go through life, do things. You do them. And that's how you go through life. Okay, that was my quick Terry
And then it
McGuire.
gets done.
And then it gets done. All right, and real quick, when there was a moment referred to it in my question. There was a moment we're going through the bankruptcy. We're all like learning federal bankruptcy law as we
Yeah.
go. And there was a moment, and we were both in Sterling. Jack Muherter, who was president of
Yeah.
Halo Lee Wayne at the time, was out of town, and we couldn't get a hold of him. Mark Simon was out of the country. And we were contacted by the bankruptcy attorneys that we needed to send this awful letter, but it's just part of the process to suppliers who had paid any amount of money to the previous entity that was known as Halo leading up to the bankruptcy. And I remember Terry and I sitting in Terry's office. We had to write this letter. And we're like, who put us in charge of running this company
Right.
today? I'll never forget that.
And that was
All right.
23 years ago.
I
I'm not
know.
sure I would want to take that responsibility today. And 23 years ago, we were both looking at each other like, really?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. The second part of my question, Terry, when I was cordially invited by the organization to pursue career excellence elsewhere in 2008, what went through your mind? This is a multiple choice. A, interesting. I always thought Bill would leave in handcuffs, not with a severance check and a smile. B, this feels like a trap. If they can fire a guy who once ran a meeting entirely in Van Halen song lyrics, I'm absolutely next. C, well, I guess now I'm the funniest person on staff by default. It's a heavy crown, but someone has to wear it. Or D, I didn't realize they would really fire someone for mocking Chicken George.
Hmm. Is there an E? Who was Bill again? Where did he? Because he's dead to me now. He's,
That's right. That's right.
once you're
Yeah.
off the payroll. No, no, that's not true. I would say um B.
B.
Very,
Okay.
very clearly B. Yes.
Yeah, it was I learned a valuable lesson there. We can get that another time. All right, now Terry, I have a third question for you. You and I are both fervently believe that Gen X is the second greatest generation, mainly
Yes.
because we've lived through rotary phones, dial-up internet, and parents who forgot we existed until dinner. Do you ever look around and think, I didn't survive Y2K prep, being kind and rewinding, and MySpace top eights just to be talked down to by someone named Chad who thinks sending me a TikTok through Slack is a deliverable?
Where do I go with that, Bill? Honestly.
I wish we knew. I wish we knew.
I that's a great question. As I have advanced in my years, for probably the first 20 or 30 years, 20 years at least in this industry, I would always look at the older generation that I was working with, and I would think, they're not getting it, they're not nimble, they're not thinking it. Uh, and now that I'm in that generation, and this happened about 7 or 8 years ago, I want to say, where I finally realized I'm that generation now. I'm 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 the old person that's been around for a long time. And um it took me a couple years to adapt to the relative naivete and condescending nature.
Mhm.
Fortunately, my kids are 30 and 28, so I got an early and heavy dose of that for many, many years from them. And in fact, I was going on a camping and biking trip with my son. It was probably 4 or 5 years ago during COVID, and we're driving, and he said, "So how does it feel, Dad, to know that my generation is so much smarter than yours?" And
Okay.
and, and I said, "You represent a whole lot of people that I now get exposed to professionally." And
Hmm.
um, I said, the fact that you would ask that question should answer itself because, it's condescending and ridiculous, because one thing that I've learned over time, that the days and weeks don't teach you, only the years can teach you this, is that there is a huge difference between knowledge and wisdom. And the only way that you get wisdom is by attaining knowledge over many, many years. And not that I'm super wise. I mean, if you looked at me, my behavior day to day, you would conclude very differently in terms of the wisdom. But I've been able to retain at least some of the things that I've seen, some of the experiences that I've had,
And
and
that's
project those out in a way that's fairly intelligible.
Yeah, and I think that's the word. It's experiences. I was young and full of piss and vinegar too, and I was reasonably intelligent, but I didn't have experience and all those things to apply to really have wisdom. I think it does
Right.
come with, it doesn't necessarily come with age. It usually does, but it can also come with experience. I mean, you and I were youngish, certainly during the bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I hated that experience. I tell people that when that comes up, and I can tell stories after stories
Worst two
as you
years, worst
can.
2 years of my career. Yeah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't live through it again, but I wouldn't trade it for anything because the amount of wisdom I gained from that has absolutely helped me in my career.
Right. I think an experience like that was like going to jail. It's a horrible experience. But when you get out, you realize whatever got me into that experience, I do not want to do again.
Yep. Yep.
It was very punitive in that regard.
It
But
was.
I learned the most from that. I think where you and I have, and others, but I really have always admired this about you, um, is that we're good observers. And there's a big difference between going through the hard knocks, which we've gone through, but also being able to get advice and input from other people that are going through.
Yeah. You cut out on that last part, so don't. But I think you were saying just us going through that really shaped who we are. I think that's what you were saying.
It shaped who we are. What I was mentioning is that I think there are types of people that need to learn from experience, and there are types of people that are observant and can learn from other people who have gone through experiences so they don't have to experience them themselves. And
Absolutely.
I would say, the best metaphor would be there are people that have to play on the field and get the hard knocks themselves, and there are people in the stands can see what mistakes the quarterback had made and not make
Right.
those same mistakes.
Extrapolate those out. All right. Terry, fourth question. We're almost done. You're doing great. It's not like you're Kirby and screwing this up. You're doing fantastic. You wrote a book called The Last Letter. I'm holding it right here for everybody. It's available on Amazon.com, which is it's an online bookseller if you haven't heard of it. But you wrote this under the nom de plume of Larry Reynolds, which
Yes.
frankly sounds like a guy who shows up to your book club in a cardigan, smells fairly of mahogany, and casually mentions his time living off the grid in Oslo. At what point in a Halo strategy session did your soul temporarily vacate your body and whispers, there has to be more than this, and reincarnate yourself as a sensitive, emotionally fluent man with a fountain pen and a secret?
That point was COVID and social people like you and I that are used to walking into an office with several hundred people, and all of a sudden we're in our kitchen and non-communicado. I think for most people, that time period, was a really good time to say there is more. There's something more I can contribute, something more I can do. I don't know if I'd say contribute related to the book, but there's something more of that I should explore and that I should do, in addition to being on Teams meetings in my kitchen. And that was I tried to write that book 20 years ago. It was based on a dream I had about 25 years ago. And my kids were little. I was a supplier. I was traveling all the time, trying to do it in hotel rooms at night, and it sucked. It was, I got 3 chapters and it was, even I didn't like reading it. Um, During COVID, I realized I have time now because there's nothing else to do. There's nowhere else I
Yeah.
can go. And I still have the story in my head. I had it in my head for a long time. And so I sat down and started writing and never stopped.
Well, it's a great read if you haven't read it. All kidding aside, it's really a good read. I recommend you pick it up. Now you're writing a second book, if I remember correctly, correct?
I am. I am.
Okay. And that's coming out this fall. Is it going to be also under the name of Larry Reynolds, or are we Terry McGuiring this bitch up?
I'm trying to decide that. I have two more books to write. The reason I chose this next one is, I was camping with my family. My kids asked me, I said, yeah, there are two more stories. And they said, tell us. And I explained both stories. And they both sat back in shock and said, yeah, you got to do the first one because that's insane. And my wife, who you've been married many years like me, leaned forward toward the campfire and said, "You know, honey, maybe you could just write books and not publish them because we have friends, and if they read that, we may not. That one's a little dark." I'm like, but so
But
so
that's
there
the
you go.
story. The story is the story.
So, I go through the process. I put on my corduroy, blazer with the patches, the leather
Of
patches,
course, got to
of
have those.
course, yeah, exactly. I put in like a rider, like a Hemingway pipe, nothing in it,
Nice.
maybe. And, then I go through the process of itself. Like this book, I didn't publish for a year and a half. I let some friends read it, the manuscript. And I didn't publish for a year and a half because I just wanted to write it. I didn't want people to,
Right.
necessarily read it. And the people that had read it and given me feedback, like our good friend Dale Moyer is one, our good friend Michelle Bell is another.
Yep.
And the people that came back said, why haven't I seen your book on Amazon? That was a book that's worth publishing. And so I took the big, scary, painful leap and published it. And then the bigger, scarier leaps and did book readings, which I hate.
Yeah, I know we've talked about that. Well, it's not only worth being on Amazon, it's worth picking up. So seriously, it's called The Last Letter. The author is Larry Reynolds, but between us, it's Terry McGuire. Terry, I only have
Wink,
one
wink.
final. I only have one final question for you, and this is one I did share with our good friend, mutual friend Michelle Bell. You live in Sterling, Illinois, a town so quaint that I assume the mayor is just your neighbor Gary, who won the job in a landslide 6-5 vote after promising to lower mulch prices and finally fix the pothole near the Candlelight Inn. Have you ever considered leaving, or are you still enjoying the fact that it's the only zip code left where people still say things like, "You do computer things, right?" when you mention digital transformation?
Well, we're empty nesters, and that has been led to many spirited debates over the years about staying in Sterling. And Sterling is where the global headquarters of Halo Branded Solutions is. And we've had that conversation quite a bit because both of our kids moved out of the area. Our daughter's in Denver and our son's in Salt Lake. And so that's a question. And right now, again, led to spirited debate. I do like the fact, maybe I'm a creature of habit, maybe I'm still in pre-COVID old school. I like the fact that I drive to work and I go sit in a place where other people are on some days.
Yeah.
Um, and so as long as I am at Halo, I would anticipate still being in Sterling, and I do like the small Midwest town aspect of it. Frankly, I don't know a ton of people in town because all of the people I interact with and have for 25 years at Halo are around the country, and so I know my neighbors and I'm friendly enough, but that's about it.
Yeah, no, honestly, it is a quaint town. And I've been there many times. Terry, I can't thank you enough for doing this. But before we say goodbye, do you mind if I do a little sponsor, pay a little bill here on the podcast? And the
Please
answer is
do,
no.
please do, Bill,
It's a,
please do.
hey, distributors, it's time to wake up. That's right. Wake up, clients. Wake up, distributors. Your clients are no longer satisfied with you merely acting as a middleman, slapping their logo on generic, predictable, and uninspiring products. That's where our good friend Russ Mogel and his team over at Seven Sourcing come in. They have 30 years of custom merchandise, direct merchandise sourcing, and they are the clear leaders in the space. They have established relationships. They ensure all the merchandise passes rigorous quality control checks by third-party accredited partners. They comply with and frequently exceed industry standards, manufacturing requirements, product safety, and they manage every part of logistics so you don't have to and you don't fall into those common pitfalls when you try to manage it yourself. Yeah, it takes a little bit more time. It takes 75 to 90 days, but you know what? It's worth it to deliver bespoke merchandise that your clients feel like is made just for them. Don't take my word for it. Reach out to Russ and his team over at sales@sevensourcing.com. You won't be sorry you did. Terry, can't thank you so much for joining us and for the years of friendship. We'll have to do this again in 6 or 12 years.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to share a little insight, wisdom, a little banter, which is great. You are, let's face it, a recognized and distinguished, do we say legend in the industry? But you're creeping up on that, because it's not me. You've been recognized for it. So,
I, I
yeah, the opportunity to share a little conversation with you is always great, whether it's at All Stars. Nobody Google that. You don't want to know.
you don't.
Whether it's sushi in Vegas or any time, it always ends with me wanting more conversation. By the way, that's it. Let's keep it at that.
Yep.
But wanting more
Let's.
time, yeah, wanting more time with Bill.
And now I need to go cry ugly. Thanks, Terry.
All right.